Hey guys, I'm going to talk about the books that I've read in the last little while. So without further ado, let's just jump in. I have nothing else to say. So I read The Secret Princess by Melanie Cellier. How to pronounce her name, but this is a Goose Girl retelling. This is actually the book that I wanted to read, but I wanted to read the original first. So last month I read The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale, so that I could read this one. And I would not recommend it, actually. Not the book. The book was good. It's the fact that I read two Goose Girls, like, very, very close together. That is what I wouldn't recommend. The book, The Secret Princess by Melanie Cellier, that was good. I gave it a 4-star. I really like the Goose Girl fairy tale, so the retelling was really good. But like I said, I would not recommend reading back to back, not necessarily back to back, but just close together, the same story-ish. So yeah, I did like it, but I would have probably appreciated the story a little bit more with some distance between the two. I read Holiday Amnesia by Lynette Eason. I gave this one a 3 stars, so it was middle of the road. But the funny thing is, right now I'm reading Kiss by Ted Dekker and Erin Healy, and the two stories I feel like have some overlap. So now every time I try and think about Holiday Amnesia, I'm just thinking about the current story I'm reading. So that's a bit of a conflict, so I can't really tell you that much about Holiday Amnesia other than, as you can imagine, it's at Christmas time and our main character has amnesia and she's being pursued by a killer. But she doesn't know who is trying to get at her or why or who to trust, so it's one of those. The next book I read was Sensibly Wed by Casey Stockton. Yes. I gave this one a 3-star. I actually enjoyed the story more. It's a historical romance. I actually enjoyed the story more. It is an arranged marriage, I believe. Oh yeah, that's right. It's not an arranged marriage, but it's a marriage of convenience for reputation type thing. I did like the story. I did not care for the narrator, so that's why it didn't get as high of a star rating as I might have otherwise given it, because of the narrator. So if you like historical romance, I would definitely check that one out, because I did enjoy it. The next one was Overcoming Unwanted Intrusive Thoughts by Sally M. Winston. This is as you can imagine, it's nonfiction. It's very science-based. It doesn't come from a faith perspective, but it also doesn't discount the faith experience or God or anything. So it comes from a fairly neutral standpoint in terms of faith and God. So this was actually recommended to me and I did read it. It took me a while, but I did read it and I do like it, and I would probably reread it again and recommend it. So if any type of intrusive thoughts or OCD has ever affected you, or you think maybe has affected you but you're not sure, you should give this book a read. It's really good. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. This was one of my 23 books to read in 2023 that my husband picked for me. I gave this one a 2-star. I didn't enjoy it and I was so ready for it to be over. I would have probably DNF'd it had it not been on that list, and I really wanted to finish as many as I could from that list. So there is a lot of language in terms of the N-word. Now I know for that time period that it's portraying, that was a common word in everyday language, but I just feel uncomfortable hearing it, so it ruined my experience of it quite a bit because there's so much of that. Like, I counted 120 N-words, but there were probably more that I missed. So anyway, I did also find that it was fairly boring too. So Huckleberry Finn is just a orphan boy who is kind of a nomad in his area, and it just kind of recounts all of the adventures that he gets up to either on his own or because adults around him are telling him to do certain things or whatever. So yeah, that's what I thought of that. I read the Nutcracker Suite by Shatona Havig. This one I gave a 3.5 star. The plot was kind of intriguing because it takes place in a nutcracker factory back in like the 20s, is it? Yeah, the 1920s. So a toy factory that also makes nutcrackers. And our main character is the designer of the nutcrackers, if you will. And the boss of the factory ends up murdered. And there's some suspicious activity going around the purchaser of these nutcrackers and what's going on. It does have quite a bit of like mobster vibes to it, and I don't really care for mobster gang movies or books, storytelling, any kind of storytelling. But a couple of things that bothered me were the male love interest in this story. He just felt so stalkery, and it just rubbed me the wrong way. And he's supposed to be the love interest, so everything's supposed to be okay, but it just didn't sit well with me. And then our main female character, she's just so obsessed with languages and like words and new meanings to words and using new words in her everyday vocabulary, and that was just like such a focus of the entire story, and that kind of got old really fast. But in terms of like the Nutcracker factory, that part was really cool. So take what you will from this very brief review and read it if you want. I read Hidden Currents by Christy Barrett. I had read a Christy Barrett in November and really enjoyed it, so I wanted to try another of her books. This one I gave a 3 star. This is a law enforcement woman, and a detective, and she has put away a big mob boss. I don't know about a mob boss, gang boss? A gang boss. And that puts her in danger. So essentially she goes on the run, and she tries to hide her identity because those who would want to avenge this gang boss are kind of after her. So there's that. I gave that one a 3 star. It was okay. It was 3 stars are like, they're good books. They're just not like memorable or anything too special about them. So yeah, if you want to read that kind of story, you should read that book. I DNF'd 54 Pigs by Philip Scott. It was actually kind of funny because I knew nothing about this book. This was super, super random. And I was actually enjoying it. It takes place in Manitoba, Canada, and talks about like Saskatchewan and BC, or is it just Manitoba and Saskatchewan? Anyways, I live on the Canadian prairies, so this was like right up my alley. I was super curious to see how a story would be told like this. Very much in the agriculture industry, like there was like a farmer and his animals and with neighbors and whatnot. So I was kind of interested. There was a mystery, but then there was an F word at 40%. So then I DNF'd it, which was kind of too bad. But if you find that interesting at all and you don't mind the F word, then you should try that book. I read The Christmas Joyride by Melody Carlson. I gave this one a 3.75. This is one of those stories that, like, for some reason, there isn't anything overly unique or special or intriguing about it, but it sticks with you. Does that make sense? So I definitely remember this book. I remember a lot about it. And it has to do with this elderly woman, and she sells her house, but she's really close with her neighbor who's a younger woman, and the younger woman is like really concerned about this woman, and like she doesn't really want her to move out but kind of understands and whatever. And so this older woman asks her, will you do one thing for me? Will you come on a RV road trip over Christmas, spreading Christmas joy, like Christ's love and Christmas joy? She has like a famous blog. This elderly woman has a famous blog, so it was really funny. But so she's connected to a lot of people in different states that she wants to visit on her journey, on her Christmas joyride. And she asks this younger woman to come with her. And so the two of them go on this journey. And it's a sweet Christmas story. I could totally see this being like a Hallmark Christmas movie or something. But there you go. You should read it if you like heartwarming Christmas stories. Then I read Pathways by Camille Peters. This felt very much like a Melanie Cellier or a Melanie Dickerson. Very much that type of storytelling. It is like fairy tale-ish. I don't actually know if it's a retelling of anything in particular, but it has to do with, so there's this couple and the man is, for whatever reason, really, really drawn to this forest, and there's magical things happening, mysterious things happening, so he goes to the forest and will come back and go, but sometimes he's gone for like a really long time, and then so one time he does go, even though his wife doesn't want him to go, and he never comes back. And they have a daughter, and she is following in her father's footsteps. So as she's now an older girl, like becoming a woman, she is also drawn to the forest, and her mom is terrified that she will also disappear. So anyway, yeah, I didn't like some character development aspects between her and her mom, because it felt like she was disregarding all of her mom's advice and wishes, and she just did whatever she wanted to anyway. So that I didn't like about her character. And also I didn't love the romance element. I didn't like, there wasn't anything I hated about it, but I just didn't think it was necessary, and then it got a little convoluted when she did end up going into the forest, and then what she found there. That was a bit convoluted and far-fetched, and I mean, all of it's a far-fetched story, what can I say? But I think you guys know what I mean. Like, there's a certain amount of suspending your disbelief, but then there's like, come on. Even in this magical story, like, what is happening here? So a little bit of that. But overall, I did like the story. There were just some things about it that I didn't care for. Then I read The Gigantic Beard That Was Evil by Stephen Collins. So this is a graphic novel that I heard about, I think on BookTube many years ago. Found it at a thrift store, picked it up, and finally got to reading it. It was nothing like I thought it was going to be. Like, not at all. I honestly thought this was going to be like funny adventure, like what's the word, larger than life, like what's happening, like super fun, but it's like more serious and more like existential, if you will, a little bit on the adult depression, a little bit mundane life type of exploration. So I didn't hate it. I liked it. I just didn't love it, and it wasn't at all what I thought it was gonna be. So if you're curious about this, give it a shot and let me know what you think. Then I tried Shark Heart by Emily Haybeck. I DNF'd this one at 29% when it just like, so there are some little bit of liberal comments thrown in throughout. I only read the first 29%, so there's a little bit here and there thrown in, and you're like, okay, if you don't agree or whatever, then whatever, just overlook it. And then it was starting to get a bit much, so then that's what made me DNF it. Plus, I thought there would be a lot more like shark content, because it's supposed to be about this man who develops a condition that is slowly morphing him into a great white shark. So like, what kind of story is that? And the little bits that they did share about his physical changes was interesting, but it was very brief. Like, there wasn't a lot of that in the book, and that's why I was reading it. So yeah, that's what I thought about that. Then I read Once Upon a Dickens Christmas by Michelle Greep. Michelle Greep is an author I really like. She's a Christian historical author. These three stories, 12 Days at Bleakley Manor, A Tale of Two Hearts, and The Old Lace Shop. I really like these ones. I definitely like 12 Days at Bleakley Manor the most because I feel like it has a bit more of a mystery vibe to it. But yeah, 3 charming Christmas tales set in Victorian England. They are all with a romantic element to them. But this was good. I really like this. I gave each of the 3 stories 4 stars each. So very good time in this book. So I definitely recommend this one. Sorry, things may look different now because I just took like a 2-hour break. I needed to do something really quick, really important. So I'm back. Where were we? The Memory Index by Julian R. Veka. This is a sci-fi, mainstream sci-fi, YA. 2 POV, first person. I tried to put those things in, but I haven't been very good at remembering like which tense it's written in, first or third or second sometimes. How many POVs. I usually forget to add those things to my reviews. I'll try to be better at that. But anyway, this is kind of a standard YA sci-fi. I likened it a lot to Divergent. It gave me a lot of those vibes. I did give it 3.5, so pretty good. They Came to Baghdad by Agatha Christie. I gave this one a 2.75. Yeah, I restarted this book like probably 5, 6, 7 times because every time it would start, I'd be like 10 minutes into the audiobook and I would be like, I have no idea what's happening. I have no idea what's happening. Or I'd be like 20 minutes in and I'd be like, I have no idea what's happening. So it wasn't because of a confusing plot or intro or anything. It was because my engagement was so not there. Like, I just could not focus on the story for the life of me. So honestly, I forget a lot of what it was about. But I do remember that I liked the mystery more than I liked the execution, which I am kind of finding Agatha Christie is a bit of a hit and miss author for me. I do like a lot of her books. I particularly prefer the Hercule Poirot mysteries, although I have not read any Miss Marple yet, so that should be fun to try. But definitely a bit of a hit and miss author for me. Then I read J.R.R. Tolkien's Letters from Father Christmas. I read this around Christmas time. This was such a sweet read. I honestly, like, I knew that it was letters to his children written by Tolkien himself. So, but honestly, I thought they were written like as a father, like signed off dad, you know? I didn't really realize he was creating like an entirely new world, new characters, new lore, you know? So this is this is fun. It's fun. I actually gave this one a 4.75 and it would have gotten a 5-star except for that being that Tolkien was a Christian man, I just feel like he could have added some of the Jesus element into it because it was Santa focused. So I did feel like that was missing, but in terms of like Tolkien's creativity and his care and concern and his fatherliness to his children, so sweet and heartwarming. Really, really loved it. And this edition, I would assume all of the editions, but I only have this one to reference, has the actual letters in the book. So this is what the kids would have gotten, the actual letter the kids would have gotten. This is the envelope, and then even his drawings, like Tolkien was an artist, so these are the drawings he included in some of his letters. So I just found this super, super sweet. So yeah, if you like any kind of fantastical, sweet, Christmassy storytelling, read this. I read A Dance in Donegal by Jennifer Dybel. I give this one a 3-star. This is Christian historical romance. Didn't really find anything too special about it, but it was good. Kind of a typical historical Christian romance. So I gave it a 3-star, but yeah, it was good. The next book I read was The Unfinished Gift by Dan Walsh. Hadn't really heard anything about this book. However, I do have a different book from Dan Walsh that I have yet to read, but it's on my shelf. So I was a little familiar with his name. This was another heartwarming Christmas story, perfect for the season, that doesn't involve romance. That's such an element that I truly value in a lot of fiction, is when there is actually no romance. I can appreciate a good romance, okay? Don't get me wrong. But I just feel like it's overused and it's like in every story. So when I see a book like this that is super warm and fuzzy, but also deals with some hard things. It is about a little boy who is orphaned, and social services has brought him to his grandfather after his mom passes away because his dad is serving in the war and they can't get a hold of him. So he brings him to his grandfather, but the grandfather and the father serving in the war, they are estranged and haven't spoken for many years. And this older gentleman, the grandpa, is very curmudgeon-y and set in his ways, and he does not want a little tyke running around, and he's very bitter. So it's basically that relationship development. And it does happen around Christmas time, and it just follows this little boy as he's trying to figure out what to do with this man who's supposed to be his grandpa, but doesn't seem to want anything to do with him. And he's just a little boy, right? So it's very sweet, but again, deals with a little bit of hard stuff. But yeah, if that sounds at all interesting, give that one a try. I got another Mrs. Jeffries in. I got Mrs. Jeffries Plays the Cook. This is book 7 by Emily Brightwell. I'm loving the series. I gave this one a 3.75. Not one of my more favorites, but also not a dud either. It is a good one. I don't really know how to explain the Mrs. Jeffries series, because Mrs. Jeffries is a house servant, basically the commander of the household servants of this local inspector. He's a single man, and he does his best to be an inspector, but he's not super gifted in that area. So his house staff try to help him solve cases without him knowing. And yeah, I just really enjoy this series. Every book is a new mystery that engages all of the staff in really interesting ways, and I just like these characters. So that's all I can say about that. I did read Shady Hollow by Juno Black. This one I've heard a lot about, just on social media, I'm not on TikTok, Bookstagram and BookTube. I've seen a lot of people loving Shady Hollow, so I thought I'd give it a try. And I liked it. First of all, I didn't know much going into it other than it was like woodland characters. So I honestly thought it was middle grade, but it not middle grade. It is adult mystery, and a lot of times I could forget that they were animals, but the times that Juno Black actually wrote the animal characteristics into the story were probably my favorite parts. I do feel like the book has its success because of the animal characterization, not the mystery. I feel like the mystery was fairly rudimentary, pretty predictable, it was a normal kind of mystery, but it was the animals that were the humans, so there are no humans in this book. There's a mayor, and I can't remember which animal the mayor is, but you know what I mean, where every character is an animal. Anyway, I liked it for that aspect. If it had been humans, I probably would have rated it lower. Yeah, But I mean, I liked it for that. I don't know if it'll be high on my list of series to finish, but it is what it is. I read The Story of Holly and Ivy by Rumer Godin. This is a book that I found at the thrift store because it's just so precious. Has my name in it, of course. But also the illustrations are very sweet. They're just like, almost like a grayscale pencil sketch with red and green details. And I just think it's so sweet. I loved it. The story itself was also very cute. It is about another orphan girl who kind of escapes her group home situation at Christmas. She runs away, and in this town that she ends up in, there is a toy store where it comes down to the end of Christmas Day, I think, where there's one doll that's left that has not been sold, and it is set in like, I don't know what year, well, I don't know, the 20s or something. But anyway, this one doll is the only one left, and they kind of meet each other. So that was very sweet. I like that one as a Christmas story. Go check it out. Then I read The Betrayal by Jerry B. Jenkins. This is, I don't know if there's more books in this series, but I read the first book in the series and thought it was good enough. This book I gave a 3.5, so probably around the same vibe. This one I liked, maybe 3.5 is a bit generous, I don't know. But I like this one less than the first one, because in the first one we're dealing with the main character, more so his grief and his coming out of the grief, his healing process after losing his wife and young son. And then this one, it's really cool the way, like, I like it when books really flow into each other. So the first book has this big climactic ending, and our main character is in a sketchy situation. And in this book, it starts off just after the sketchy situation. Okay? So it flows very nicely. That's all I can say. And I don't really want to say too much more because it's spoilers for the first book, but he is a policeman. Yeah, I think that's enough, right? Go read it. It is Christian, more contemporary, all that jazz. And the last book that I read, you guys, is Once Upon a Wardrobe by Patty Callahan. This is a sweet book. I gave it a 4.5 star. I think this might have, oh no, Letters from Father Christmas was my top rated this month, but this might have been the next one. This was a really good story. I liked this one a lot. There is a hint of romance, but it's such a hint that it makes it sweet. You know how sometimes when you're having a dessert or something and there's just way too much sugar and it ruins it, whereas if they had cut back the sugar, it would have been way more tasty. That's how I feel about like most romance books, where I just feel like it's not necessarily too spicy or anything, is not what I'm saying, but it's just too focused on the romance. Whereas I like when there's a romance in the background. It feels a lot more natural, because for the most part, there is always exception, but for the most part, I feel like romances in real life are a bit more slow burning. There are, like I said, exceptions, don't get at me, but I do like to see a sweet little romance blossom in the background of a story. Anyway, that was a tangent. This is a story of a girl and her little brother. Her little brother is ill, and it doesn't look like he's going to make it to another Christmas, so they're focused on this Christmas. And he is a big literary fella. he has loved the Chronicles of Narnia. And it just so happens that his older sister is in the college that C.S. Lewis, who is the author of the Chronicles of Narnia, he teaches at the college that his older sister goes to. So he, as soon as he's finished reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, he is asking his sister, like, can you ask Mr. Lewis where Narnia came from? And all she wants to do for her little brother, because this might be the last thing she can do for him, is find out C.S. Lewis's answer to the question. And that's kind of the whole book. It doesn't sound all that interesting or like a full plot, but it is really, really great to see the interaction between C.S. Lewis and this big sister, this main character. The way that C.S. Lewis tries to answer the question without answering the question, their relationship build, as well as the sister and the little brother's relationship build. And then of course you get a whole bunch of information about C.S. Lewis and the Chronicles of Narnia. So it's very, very sweet. I definitely recommend it. So that is it for my December wrap up, for my recent reads wrap up. I think it went really well. Like, I read quite a few books. This is my reading journal, and the list is quite long. So I'm happy with how that turned out. I liked quite a lot of them. I only had a few DNFs, and I only had one low star. So overall, I think it was a very successful month of reading. Please let me know in the comments below if you have read any of these and your thoughts on them. And let me know also what was like a special book that you found in December 2023. Let me know in the comments below, because we are wrapping up and headed into a new year. I say headed into a new year, but we're already here, guys. We're already here. Let's make it a good year. Let's make it count. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. Have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!